Now that we have our grid, we're ready to start placing our bespoke custom tapered columns. First thing we need to do is actually construct that column. So I'm going to go to File and create a new family. And that'll take us, we need to go into the English Imperial and look for a structural column. Open that up, and it's going to take us to a plan view of the level. So we're looking down on it, and we want to make a circular column in general with tapered ends. So I'm going to use the extrusion tool and the circle tool, and I'll pull out a circle. And the first thing I want to do is parameterize this. So I'm going to select this dimension and then give it a parameter name, and we'll call it column diameter. Click OK. So that's set. And if we click off the screen of that, I can now complete that. And we'll take a peek at that at like a front elevation. And right now it's not established to any other element here. It's just extruded from 0 up to whatever. And I don't want to tie it here yet because I want to create some new reference levels. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to Create. I'm going to create a reference line. I don't get any kind of hinting here, so I'll just draw it. And I'll draw one down here also. This is on continuous, it looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and, create another reference line down here. And first thing I want to do now is, actually, if I can grab this dimension, oops, probably have to do this with annotation. I'm going to give this a parameter. So I'm going to click on New Parameter, and we'll call this Taper Depth. And it's a dimension parameter of the type, so that's fine. And it starts out at 8 inches here. Let's just give it an even number. And these are really small numbers because we're working only with 9 foot. And I don't want to really stretch this out because it'll get it too hard to visualize on the screen. So the next thing is I'm going to do is put that same dimension down here and change this to that identical parameter. That's in the drop down now. Oops, didn't mean column depth. Taper depth. And now we can actually establish our column to be connected to those because that's where the end of the taper is. So I'm going to lock that off at the top and at the bottom. And now we're ready to create that tapered part of the column. And obviously this is really stocky looking. That would be a much slender taper. But let's go back to the lower elevation and create a blend. So we're going to go from a circle to a circle, but it's just a moldable extrusion. So we'll do the edit the top first, and we'll make our first circle. And oops, wrong tool. And I'll pull this out, and we'll make it, let's say 6 inches. That'll make it a foot. Now let's make it a little smaller, 4. And that's that. And then we got to edit the base. And this time I'll do the same thing, but I'm going to come all the way out to that same dimension. And I want that dimension always to be the same. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this and select it again and make sure, oops, didn't mean to do that, cancel. I don't want a new parameter. I want to use an existing one. I want to use the column diameter so that the end of the taper always stays the same size. So I'll click onto the screen, complete that, and we'll go ahead and look again from the front elevation at what we have. And it's pretty close. I need to drag this down and lock it. And we need to make sure that this is established as being locked to the bottom grid. And the next thing we can do is just copy this over to the top. So I'm just going to do this and unconstrain that so that I can slide it up a little bit. And now we're just going to make sure that we lock it to the new grid or the new reference lines at the top. Okay, so now we can actually exercise this a little bit. I can pull this up and the column should behave, as we're seeing it. The other thing is I could change this taper depth. So let's say I'll make this now 20 inches. and they both expend at 20 inches. I could also do the column diameter. If I went to the lower reference level, and I don't know how I'm going to pick that. I'm not going to worry about it because we're going to load this into the project, and I'll show you how to flex it there. So we'll do now a save as a family. I've already done this once, and it's the Tapered Column 2023 that I've called it, because I'm just really revamping and enhancing this existing project. And I'm going to replace that. We'll go ahead and load that into the project. You won't get an overwrite existing version like I did. And let's go to architecture. It'll probably want to place the component right away. Oh, that's a little funny. Let's say structure, column. There's the tapered column. I was placing it as a regular component, but it needs to be placed as a structural. So there's my tapered column. Yours will automatically probably appear. We want to make sure it's set for height and not depth. It may the first time be set for depth, and we want to make sure it's set for top of column. And then you can go ahead and place it. And I'm actually seeing one here, so I'm going to delete this one out because this is an older one. And I'm going to go ahead now again and place that column. It's still got the same settings, and I'm going to go ahead on the grid and place that. And then we'll go ahead and look at that from a 3D view. So I'm going to go to view. I don't think I've created a 3D view of this. And there we have the column placed. Probably if we look from a front elevation, you can see how it's lined up to top of column. And actually, let's flex it here. So I'm going to select the item, the column, and I'm going to go to edit type. And this is where I get a chance to change those parameters. I think it's really important that you think about this. We went through all the trouble of creating these parameters so that you could flex this, so you could change these things. Like for instance, if the taper looks way too chunky right now, we can change this to, let's say 8 feet. I think that'll change date. Nope, 8 feet. We'll change it to 8 feet. And oh, I hate that. And we'll make the column diameter a bit larger. So we'll make that 2 feet, and we'll hit apply. And now we have our new column. And obviously the 2 feet looks way too big in diameter. So I'm going to go back to 1 foot and hit apply. Okay, so our next step then will be to place all the columns. And I think I'll just pick that up in the next clip.